The air was filled with the smell of burned metal and dust. Smoke curled from the ruins of what had once been a proud alien fortress, now nothing more than a field of broken walls and shattered armor. Sergeant Ryan Cole moved carefully between the wreckage, his rifle hanging loosely from his shoulder. The battle between the Terran Defense Forces and the Zerath Empire had finally ended, but what was left behind hardly looked like a victory. The silence after the fight was almost worse than the gunfire. Ryan had been separated from his squad during the last bombing run. He could have turned back to rejoin them, but his conscience didn't let him. There were still survivors here, wounded, lost, maybe trapped. He didn't care if they were human or alien. War had already taken enough. His boots crunched over shards of crystal metal, the kind the Zerath used in their buildings. The faint glow beneath the debris made it look like the ground itself was bleeding light. He paused when he heard something, a soft sound like someone gasping in pain. It came from beneath a collapsed pillar on his right. For a second he thought it might be another soldier, but when he moved the debris aside, what he saw made him freeze. It was a young Zerath woman. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, pale like starlight reflected on water. Her long hair was tangled and streaked with ash, and one of her legs was trapped under a piece of metal. She looked terrified when she saw him, a human soldier standing over her with a weapon. Her breathing quickened, her body trembling. Ryan slowly lowered his gun and raised his empty hand. "It's okay," he said quietly. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her voice was weak, almost a whisper. "You're human." He nodded, crouching beside her. "Yeah, name's Ryan, and you're lucky I found you before the patrol drones did." She tried to move, but winced in pain. "My leg, it's stuck." He glanced at the beam, then back at her. "Hold still." He planted his hands under the metal, grunting as he lifted it just enough for her to pull free. She gasped again, biting back a cry. When it was done, she slumped back, breathing hard. Ryan took out a small med kit from his pack and began wrapping a bandage around her wound. "That'll stop the bleeding for now," he said. "You'll need proper treatment soon." She looked at him strangely, confusion in her silver blue eyes. "Why are you helping me?" "I am your enemy." Ryan smiled faintly. "Maybe, but you're also bleeding and alone. I've seen enough dying today." She said nothing for a while, just watching him with silent curiosity. Her face was elegant and otherworldly, but her expression was surprisingly human. Fear mixed with disbelief. When he finished bandaging her leg, he offered her a hand. She hesitated before taking it. He helped her stand. "Can you walk?" "Barely," she said. "But I must try." Ryan supported her weight as they began moving through the ruined corridor. The sounds of distant engines echoed through the air. The Zerath were still searching the area. He could tell she was struggling with every step, but she refused to stop. There was a quiet strength in her that he couldn't ignore. After a few minutes, Ryan asked, "What's your name?" She hesitated before answering. "Lyra." The name sounded gentle, like music. Ryan nodded. "Well, Lyra, we need to get you out of here before one of your patrols finds us." She looked at him in surprise. "You would hide me? From my own people?" "Yeah," he said simply. "If they find you wounded and alone, they might think you've been captured." Or worse, Lyra's lips trembled slightly. "My father, he ordered me to stay behind. He said if capture was near, I was to die with honor." Ryan stopped walking. "He what?" "It is our law," she said quietly, her eyes lowering. "A royal heir must not be taken alive. It would bring shame to the throne." Ryan exhaled sharply. "Some law. You're not dying on my watch." They found an old service tunnel leading beneath the ruins. The passage smelled of rust and stale air, but it was safe enough for the moment. Ryan guided Lyra through, his flashlight cutting a pale beam across the darkness. As they walked, she began to speak softly. "I did not think humans were capable of mercy," she admitted. "Our generals say you are ruthless, that you destroy without care." Ryan laughed quietly. "You've been listening to the wrong people. We're not perfect, but we don't enjoy killing. Most of us just want the fighting to stop." "Then why do you fight?" she asked. "Because someone always starts it," he said, his voice low. "We defend. We survive. That's all." She looked at him for a long moment. "You are not what I expected, Ryan Cole." "Guess I could say the same," he said with a grin. "You're not exactly what I pictured a royal heir to be." Lyra blinked. "How do you know I am royal?" Ryan gave a small shrug. "You said your father gave the order. Only someone high up would hear it directly." And that outfit you're wearing, it's not standard military issue. Her face softened with reluctant amusement. You are observant, human. They continued down the tunnel until they reached an underground chamber with collapsed walls and a faintly glowing transport pad that hadn't worked in years. Ryan helped her sit down near a wall. She looked exhausted but grateful. He sat across from her, resting his back against the cold stone. We'll wait here until night. Once it's dark, I'll try to signal for evac. You cannot, she said quickly. If your people come, my father's army will see. They will attack again. Ryan frowned. So what do you suggest? Lyra hesitated. There is a border village 2 miles east. It is neutral ground. If we reach it, I can send word for peace talks. But I cannot make it alone. Ryan studied her face. Her eyes glowed faintly in the low light, filled with determination. He nodded. Then that's where we'll go. Hours passed in uneasy silence. The distant rumble of ships echoed above them. At one point, Lyra closed her eyes, clearly fighting sleep. Ryan watched her, wondering what kind of life she had lived before all this. For someone raised in power, she seemed strangely unguarded, almost fragile. When she finally spoke again, her voice was softer. You could have left me, you know. Many would have. Ryan smiled faintly. Yeah, maybe. But I guess I've got this bad habit of doing the right thing, even when it makes my life harder. She looked at him with quiet admiration. You are strange, Ryan Cole. Thanks. I get that a lot. Later, when they finally left the tunnel and stepped into the moonlit ruins, Ryan felt the night breeze on his face. The stars above the alien sky were unfamiliar but beautiful. Lyra leaned against him for support as they crossed the rubble. In the distance, faint lights marked the direction of the neutral village. But before they could get far, the hum of engines made Ryan stop. Search drones, 3 of them, swept across the landscape, their lights scanning the ground. He pulled Lyra behind a broken wall. The beams passed dangerously close. They will find us, she whispered. They are programmed to sense movement, Ryan thought quickly. Then we stay perfectly still. They crouched together in the shadow, barely breathing. The drone lights passed once more, then faded into the distance. When it was finally safe, Lyra let out a shaky breath. Ryan realized she was trembling. Without thinking, he placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him, her expression unreadable. You risked your life again, she said softly. He shrugged. I told you I don't leave people behind. Her gaze lingered on him for a long moment. There was something unspoken there, something she didn't have words for. Finally, she whispered, You are not like the others. They continued walking in silence until they reached the edge of the battlefield. The faint glow of dawn was beginning to touch the horizon. They could see the distant outline of the village, a cluster of lights surrounded by peaceful hills. But as they approached, a group of Zirath soldiers appeared from the mist, their weapons raised. Ryan immediately stepped forward, raising his hands. Wait, don't shoot! The lead soldier aimed directly at him. Human soldier! Surrender at once. Lyra stepped forward weakly, standing between them. Stop, she shouted. Her voice, though faint, carried authority. The soldiers froze when they recognized her. Princess Lyra, one of them said, lowering his weapon. You are alive? She nodded. This human saved me. He is under my protection. The soldiers exchanged uncertain looks. But Princess, the king ordered that— I know what he ordered, she interrupted sharply. But I will not obey it. If not for him, I would be dead. Ryan stood silently behind her, tense but calm. He could see the confusion in the soldiers' faces. They didn't know whether to follow their orders or their princess. The moment stretched endlessly. Then Lyra took a deep breath and said clearly, If you wish to serve the crown, then you will obey me. Lower your weapons. One by one they did. The air felt lighter, but only for a moment. More ships were approaching in the distance, bigger, louder, unmistakably royal. Ryan knew this wasn't over. He turned to Lyra. They'll take you back. Yes, she said quietly. And they will take you too. He gave a faint smile. Could be worse. She looked at him, her expression full of conflict. You do not understand, Ryan. My father will see this as betrayal. He will see you as mine, he frowned. Yours? Before she could answer, a massive royal carrier descended from the sky, bathing them in light. Soldiers surrounded them instantly. Lyra was pulled back gently but firmly. Ryan raised his hands, letting them take his weapon. The air buzzed with tension. As they were led toward the ship, Lyra suddenly shouted, Do not harm him. The guards hesitated. Everyone turned to her. Her voice shook, but she didn't back down. He is not your... The massive doors of the Zerath royal carrier closed with a hiss, enclosing Ryan and Lyra in a chamber lit by soft, pale light. The walls glowed faintly with alien patterns pulsating like living veins. Ryan's mind raced. Every instinct told him this was no ordinary detention. It was the heart of the alien empire. He had seen nothing like it, not even in the war simulations back on Earth. Lyra stood beside him, her expression calm but firm. Her hand brushed his slightly, a small silent reassurance. Ryan didn't know what the gesture meant, but it gave him courage. The humans had rules, the aliens had laws, and somehow he was caught between both. Soldiers surrounded them as the carrier descended onto the palace landing platform. The city below gleamed with crystalline towers alive with energy and alien life. Ryan's eyes widened. Even after all the war stories, he hadn't expected to see Zerath in its true glory. He felt tiny, insignificant, yet somehow important, standing next to Lyra. They were escorted through the palace halls, and the air grew heavier with each step. The walls seemed to hum in response to Lyra's presence, as though the building itself recognized the royal blood she carried. Ryan noticed servants and courtiers whispering as they passed, their eyes darting between him and the princess. Some were afraid, others curious. Few had ever seen a human in the inner sanctum. Finally, they arrived in the grand throne room. It was immense, larger than any building Ryan had ever seen on Earth. The ceiling stretched high, adorned with glowing constellations. Crystal pillars spiraled toward the sky, reflecting the light in dazzling patterns. At the center, on a throne made of dark crystalline silver, sat the alien king. His presence was overwhelming. The room seemed to bend around him, as if the air itself feared his authority. Ryan's stomach tightened. He had faced enemies before, but never like this. This was a king who ruled not just with armies, but with absolute power. His eyes, sharp and silver, fixed on them immediately. He rose slowly, every movement deliberate, commanding attention without even speaking. Lyra stepped forward. "Father," she said, her voice strong, carrying across the chamber. "This is Ryan Cole. He saved me from the battlefield. He risked his life to protect me, and I chose to bring him here." The king's gaze shifted to Ryan, piercing, almost judging him entirely. "A human?" His voice resonated deep and powerful, shaking the chamber slightly. "Do you understand what you are saying, daughter? Do you know what this implies?" Lyra nodded. "I do. And I do not care. I choose him." The court fell silent. Whispers spread quickly, a ripple of shock passing through the nobles and generals gathered. None had ever heard a royal heir speak in such defiance. Ryan felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on him, most hostile, some fascinated. The king's voice was calm but cutting. "You would defy your own people. For a human?" "Yes," Lyra said firmly. "He is not just a human. He is brave, compassionate, and honorable. If the throne or the war demands loyalty, then I refuse to comply blindly. I will choose who I stand with." The king's gaze narrowed. "And this human, what do you intend for him? To claim him as your mate?" Ryan's heart raced at her words. He had not expected this, and the tension made it hard to breathe. Lyra's eyes met his, steady, unwavering. It wasn't a request, it was her choice, her declaration. He opened his mouth to speak, but Lyra placed a hand gently on his arm. "You do not need to answer yet," she whispered, "just for him." The king raised one hand and the room stilled. "You understand, princess," he said slowly, "that choosing a mate is not simple. It is binding. Once you declare it in the right of choosing, no one can deny it, not even your own father." Lyra straightened. "I understand, and I am prepared." Ryan swallowed hard. He had always known humans could be brave, even in impossible situations. But standing here, in a palace filled with alien nobles, knowing he might be judged, imprisoned, or worse, he felt the full weight of courage and fear. He realized that the human spirit wasn't just about fighting. It was about standing for what you believed in, even if the whole world opposed you. The king studied Ryan closely. "You are a soldier," he said finally. "Human or not, you are not untested. Tell me, Ryan Cole, do you understand the consequences of standing by this princess? You will be bound to her, to this empire, and to its laws. Many will oppose you. Some may try to kill you." Ryan nodded, his voice steady despite the tension. "I understand, and I will stand with her." A murmur spread through the court. The king's eyes, sharp and intelligent, searched Ryan's face as if measuring his soul. Finally he spoke. Then the right of choosing will proceed. Today you declare before the stars and this court. Your decision is final. Lyra's lips curved slightly in relief. She turned to Ryan. Are you ready? He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I am. If this is what you want, I will not step back. The king motioned to a group of attendants who brought forward a circular platform, etched with ancient symbols that glowed faintly under the alien light. Lyra stepped onto it first, her posture regal. Ryan followed, heart pounding, but he felt strangely calm. The symbols seemed to react to them both, a soft glow tracing patterns in response to their presence. The high priest of Zerath stepped forward, his voice echoing in the chamber. By ancient law, the princess may choose her mate. The chosen must accept, or the rite cannot be completed. Speak now, princess. Lyra lifted her chin and spoke clearly, her voice carrying through the hall. I choose this human, Ryan Cole, to be my mate. I choose him not for convenience, not for alliance, but because he is brave, honorable, and compassionate. He saved my life, and I will stand with him. A hush fell over the court. Ryan felt every eye on him, some filled with disbelief, others with curiosity. The high priest turned to him. Ryan Cole, do you accept this choice, knowing it binds you to the princess and her people? Ryan took a deep breath. He thought of the battlefield, the tunnel, and the countless moments when Lyra had trusted him despite the danger. I accept, he said firmly. I will stand with her no matter the cost. The symbols on the platform flared brightly, casting shimmering light across the chamber. The court gasped as the rite was complete. Ryan felt a subtle pull, a connection that was almost tangible, linking him to Lyra. It was not magic, he realized, it was trust, respect, and the acknowledgement of a bond that neither culture nor war could break. The king rose from his throne, silent for a long moment. Then slowly he spoke. You have defied tradition, princess, and yet the rite is binding. Let it be known that the human stands beside you. May the stars guide your path. A wave of murmurs ran through the court. Some courtiers looked angry, some impressed. Ryan glanced at Lyra and she smiled faintly, relief softening her face. For the first time since the battle, he felt a sense of peace. The rest of the day passed in a surreal blur. Ryan and Lyra were escorted to the private chambers of the princess where they could rest. Ryan tried to absorb everything, the palace, the strange technology, the customs that seemed impossible to grasp, but he kept returning to Lyra. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, strong, intelligent, yet kind. Her trust had changed everything. That night, as Ryan lay on a simple cot in the royal quarters, Lyra sat nearby, her hand brushing against his. I was afraid, she admitted quietly. Afraid that my people would never accept you. Afraid that I would lose everything. Even my life, Ryan shook his head. You did the right thing. You chose someone who values life, not just honor. That's what makes you strong. She looked at him, eyes reflecting the alien stars through the window. You are different from all humans I have ever known. You are human yet extraordinary. Ryan smiled faintly. I guess we're all capable of extraordinary things when someone believes in us. The next days were filled with careful adjustments. Ryan learned the customs of Lyra's people, her royal court, and the subtle politics of the empire. Some nobles were hostile, but Lyra's position and the binding rite protected him. Slowly he gained respect. People noticed his courage, his integrity, and his willingness to understand their culture rather than fight against it. Lyra guided him through every challenge. She was patient, wise beyond her years, and yet still playful at times. Ryan found himself laughing again, something he hadn't done since the war had begun. In those moments, he realized that the bond between them was no longer about survival. It was about connection, trust, and something deeper than either of them had expected. Weeks passed. Ryan, once a soldier in a foreign war, had become an unexpected ambassador, bridging two worlds. And Lyra, the princess who defied her father, had found a partner who could stand beside her, not as a tool of war, but as an equal. Together, they began to imagine a new future, a future where humans and Zerath could coexist. And though challenges lay ahead, they knew that as long as they faced them together, nothing could break the bond forged on a battlefield of ruin and courage. For Ryan, the human soldier, life had changed forever. not just because he had survived the war, but because he had found something worth standing for. An alien princess who had chosen him, not as a captive, not as a pawn, but as a mate, a partner, and a bridge between two civilizations. And for Lyra, the princess, she had discovered that courage was not only about commanding armies or obeying law, it was about choosing love, trusting it and daring to stand against everything she had been taught. In that palace of crystal and light,